El Salvador is the first country to make Bitcoin a legal currency. Hi there, everyone. It's Jeff, and this is Plain English, where we help you upgrade your English with current events and trending topics, all, as you can hear, at the right speed for you, the English learner. JR is the producer, and he has uploaded the full lesson to plainenglish.com/406. Coming up today, El Salvador has adopted a cryptocurrency as legal tender alongside the US dollar, which it has been using since 2001. We'll talk about the rollout and the range of opinions on the matter. The expression we'll review today is stretched thin, and we have a quote of the week from Jimi Hendrix. Bitcoin was created in 2009 to be an alternative electronic currency free from any type of government control or interference. It's not controlled by any one central authority, but by a transparent and supposedly unhackable ledger called a blockchain. It's decentralized, anonymous, and free from any form of government control. El Salvador is a small, poor Central American country of 6.5 million people. About 45% of the population has access to the internet, which is often spotty. In rural areas, that figure is only 10%. El Salvador's economy is primarily cash-based. 70% of Salvadorans don't have a bank account or a credit card. Their financial lives are simple. They pay and get paid in cash. El Salvador has used the US dollar as its official currency since 2001. Salvadorans like it because they trust the US dollar and their currency is stable. So, what is El Salvador doing adopting Bitcoin as an alternate legal currency? The short answer is that this is a risky bet being placed by the country's wildly popular, unconventional 40-year-old president Nayib Bukele. There is an optimistic and a pessimistic view of what's going on. But before we get to that, how did this happen? At a cryptocurrency conference in Miami on June 5th, Bukele announced in a video message that he would be sending a bill to Congress that would make Bitcoin an official currency. The announcement took a lot of people by surprise, not the least everyone in El Salvador. Bukele first made the announcement in English, not in Spanish, and he told a crypto conference, not Salvadorans. Business leaders, including banks in El Salvador, were not consulted. Economists in El Salvador didn't know what to think. Bukele sent a bill to Congress on June 6th. By June 9th, Congress had passed it. The bill gave the country just 90 days to become the first country in history to adopt a cryptocurrency as legal tender. On September 7th, the law went into effect. What does it mean to be legal tender? It's the currency in which debts can be legally settled. In El Salvador, as of now, they have two forms of legal tender. Any debt can now be legally paid in either Bitcoin or US dollars. That means taxes, wages, loans, bills, anything can be paid either in dollars or in Bitcoin. But the Bitcoin law goes farther than just making the cryptocurrency legal tender. It requires merchants to accept Bitcoin for purchases as long as they have the technology to do so. That means Starbucks, McDonald's, and other smaller merchants all now must have a Bitcoin payment option. The opinions about this range from good to bad to ugly. Let's start with the good. About 20% of El Salvador's economy is based on remittances from abroad. That means people send money from the United States, Europe, and other countries back to their friends and relatives in El Salvador. To do so, they often pay exorbitant money transfer fees to places like Western Union. As a result, Salvadorans lose a large percentage of their incoming money to these fees. The new crypto wallets sponsored by the Salvadoran government will reduce the costs. There are other potential benefits. The new system will make day-to-day payments easier for those who are digitally connected, and it will bring some people into the formal banking sector and out of the shadow cash-based economy, while possibly attracting more foreign investment. Now for the bad. Cryptocurrency is famously unstable. In the past year, a single Bitcoin has ranged in value from $10,000 to $63,000. It's not typically used as a means of exchange because its value is so unpredictable. That's one reason why so few things are available to buy in Bitcoin. You don't know what it's going to be worth from one day to the next. This could lead to wild swings in the price of goods and services. People in El Salvador, already stretched thin, don't have the financial cushion to accept unpredictable changes in the value of their money. The government says it will facilitate the conversion of Bitcoin to dollars with a reserve fund. However, if the swing in value is big enough, the reserve fund could be overwhelmed. Plus, the average Salvadoran won't monitor the price daily and actively manage a currency portfolio. Bitcoin is good for paying for certain things. However, ransom payments and money laundering are both excellent use cases for cryptocurrencies because the cryptocurrencies are anonymous and they avoid the international banking system and its know your customer regulations. El Salvador could become the new world headquarters for money laundering, kidnapping, and ransomware attacks. Anyone who earned Bitcoin from ransomware, for example, could legally exchange the Bitcoin for US dollars in El Salvador, no questions asked, and then spend those dollars in Miami, New York, London, or wherever they like. Now, finally, the ugly. Dollarization is popular in El Salvador because it brought price and economic stability. But Bitcoin could be the opening gambit for reversing dollarization by stealth means. Once enough people are using the digital wallet, the government could stop converting Bitcoins to US dollars and adopt its own digital currency that's worth less. If Bukele gets the payment infrastructure right, this will be easy to do, and there won't be much that Salvadorans can do to stop it. This is going to be a disaster, I think. There are plenty of ways to get people out of the cash economy without adopting a cryptocurrency. Latin America has an active market of new financial technology companies, including payment apps that are innovative, low cost, and easy to understand. There are already cheaper ways to send money abroad than Western Union. The dollar is popular in El Salvador and it's stable. The new president seems to be trying to be like Elon Musk, a high-tech global celebrity. He's certainly got that. But he's betting his small, poor country's entire economy on a volatile currency that no other country has adopted. Today's English expression is stretched thin. If you're stretched thin, you don't have enough time or enough money to do what you want. In today's lesson, I said that many Salvadorans are already stretched thin and they don't have the ability to also absorb the fluctuations in a volatile currency. They are stretched thin because they don't have enough money to do all the things they need to do. If they also lose monetary value due to currency fluctuations, they're going to be hurt badly. If your budget is stretched thin, then you don't have the money you think you need to get through life comfortably. This is all relative. One person's idea of a need can be very different from another person's idea. And so when we talk about stretched thin, it's also highly subjective. In the US, a family's budget could be stretched thin if they have a hard time making payments on both cars. But someone in another country might think even having 2 cars is a luxury. No matter, stretched thin is about the perception and the feeling. Many people are stretched thin in their first few years out of school. I know I was. I drove an old car. I didn't save much money. I lived in a low-cost area, and I lived in a house with 5 people and 1 bathroom. Really. I was stretched thin, or at least that's what I thought. Well, then I moved to Chicago, got a raise, moved into an apartment with just 1 other person. My life got better, but I still felt stretched thin because everything cost more. I didn't have a lot of money left over at the end of the month, and at the beginning, I didn't have a lot of luxuries. It's all about perception. Even though both of these circumstances were different, I still felt stretched thin. I didn't have as much money as I wanted or as I thought I needed to be comfortable, but I always had enough food, decent clothes, a warm winter coat, whatever. For those first couple of years, I felt stretched thin, but other people in different circumstances might think that was a comfortable life. Graduate students are often stretched thin. In the US, graduate students often borrow money or they get reduced tuition in exchange for working. Regardless, they're not making a lot of money, and the degree programs can go on for several years. In that time, graduate students are stretched thin. They must be careful with their spending. They have what they need to be safe and relatively comfortable, but they don't have a lot of money left over, and they have to give up some of life's luxuries. If you're going to graduate school, you have to accept that you will be stretched thin for a while. Stretched thin can also be used when talking about time. And just like with money, this is relative to a person's comfort level. If you have a lot of projects at work and you feel like you can't devote enough time to all your responsibilities, you can say that you're stretched thin. One person might get to 5 o'clock in the afternoon and walk out of the office saying, "Wow, I'm really stretched thin. I can't do all my work in the 40 hours in a work week." Some people work well in excess of 40 hours per week. It's hard for them, or us, to imagine being stretched thin and leaving work at 5 o'clock. But just like with budgets, it's all relative. I work a professional job and run a business on the side. I often feel stretched thin. However, a working parent would look at my life and laugh at the idea that I, unmarried and without children, could ever feel stretched thin. When's the last time I ever had to drop everything and pick up a child at school? Never. Working parents were really stretched thin during the pandemic. Prior to COVID, many parents struggled to balance professional responsibilities with family time. But then school and childcare shut down, and parents were forced to balance remote work while the kids were at home. Many parents really found themselves stretched thin during the pandemic. And some businesses, too, were stretched thin. Businesses may have been stretched thin because they had little money coming in, so they had to scramble to find ways to keep their businesses afloat. However, now many companies are stretched thin in a different way. They don't have enough people to do all the work. Their employees and owners are having to do more and more work in the same amount of time. Time for a quote of the week. Today, it's from the famous guitarist Jimi Hendrix. He said, "Knowledge speaks, but wisdom listens." Wisdom is hard to define, but it's usually the combination of knowledge, experience, and good judgment that accumulate over time. So Jimi Hendrix says that knowledge speaks, but wisdom listens. And that's all for today, October 11th, 2021. Remember, the lesson continues online at plainenglish.com/406. All members of Plain English at every level get access to the transcripts of the audio lessons. And at the bottom of every lesson, there are links to English articles about the main topic. So if you want to read more in English about El Salvador's new currency, go to the bottom of the transcript and you'll find 2 links to articles in English. It's a great way to expand your vocabulary and your knowledge about important global events, and it's included in the free membership. How do you get a free membership? You just go to plainenglish.com and click on basically any button. They all take you to the sign-up page. Join as a free member, and explore all we have to offer if you're not yet already on board. Well, thanks again for listening. Congratulations on all the progress you're making in English. We'll be back on Thursday with a new lesson. See you then.